Here we are from the fourth episode of The Bearded Engineer. I am the Bearded Engineer, and I've got my good friend here, Chuck Swope. He arrived here a little bit ago. He asked me a few minutes ago what we were going to discuss today, and I wouldn't tell him what we were going to discuss because that's not what we do here at The Bearded Engineer, Chuck. We just kind of show up.
That works for me.
Yep.
I'm good at showing up.
Exactly. So, everyone in Westchester knows you, but for people who will hopefully watch this, we're getting more and more. Like, why don't you tell us a little bit about, like, what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm sure after having me on today, your ratings are going to go through the roof.
Millions
so
of
I would
views.
just
Yep.
expect that. I'm a local commercial real estate broker. Pretty much we make a lot of money for everybody else except ourselves. The engineers, we come up with some really good projects for them to over-engineer and overbill for.
That's what we try to do.
All the landlords out there and real estate investors. We put the deals together so they make a ton of money, and we get a couple pennies on the side.
Right.
No, joking aside, we help people purchase, sell, lease, and invest in commercial real estate. Similar to your footprint here at Howell, we work regionally, in the Mid-Atlantic area, say 2 hours from Chester County.
Mm-hmm.
The further out, the more selective we get, but we sell and lease buildings. That's pretty much it. And
Right.
land.
And land, right. I mean,
And
you guys are kind of the
that's-
go-to household name of Westchester for sure. I mean, your name, of course, Chuck Swope's widely known throughout Westchester. So when I think of anything in town right here, I think of you. And then, of course, get to see you nearly every other morning at breakfast in Westchester.
Market Street Grill.
Right, right. And
Shout out to Carrie and Christian.
Yep, a shout out to them. And Christian's going to be on here. He doesn't know quite yet he's going to be on here, but he's going
That's
to be
okay.
on here.
And
Yep.
they just opened up a pizza shop up in Chester Springs.
Did they really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
just opened it up.
I have to go check that out.
You and I go back a number of years. Since you didn't give me an agenda to talk to, I'm happy to develop my own.
Yep.
We go back when you were over on Green Hill Road. That's when we first met.
Yep. And you
and
worked at Source Realty, right?
Shout out to Jeff Duffy.
Jeff Duffy, right?
Who got
right.
me in the industry. Good guy.
Yep.
Amen to Jeff. And Jim Lees, we're still plugging along here at Swope Lees.
Name right on your shirt.
There you go.
Yep.
So, I've seen you grow over the years and, have certainly appreciated our friendship growing, personally and professionally. We've spent some time on the water together.
Absolutely.
And been through some ups and downs. I remember talking to you through 07, 08,
Yep.
when things were not moving right along the way anybody hoped they would.
Luckily,
And
I just built this building in 2008, so it was a
I
sheer stroke
recall.
of genius
I
that
recall.
I did
And who
that.
did the engineering here? Because the parking was a little tight out there. So,
I gotta look up the recorded plan and see. When it rains, there is a problem out here sometimes.
yeah, well, I can't speak to that, but
I think actually, who was the broker on? It was Frank England, right? And was
he probably recommended, less parking than more.
he did right? There was a picture of me
'Cause
on the.
nobody appreciates parking.
No, you don't need that parking. You need more building, right?
That's
You
right.
can't lease parking spots. You can only lease buildings.
No, Frank's
Building
a good guy and respected colleague in the industry.
I'm trying to think. Let's go back a little bit. Obviously not far as back as Looker, Lees, and Melcher when I knew Jim Lees, but Frank was First Liberty Partners.
That's what he is now.
He still is
Frank
First
and I
Liberty
were
Partners.
at Source Realty Group together,
That's correct.
and then Frank decided to venture out on his own,
Right.
And I did in 2009. Again, a great time to start your own business.
Yeah, we'll have to dig up that picture sometime. So yeah, so like you said, obviously we both kind of started up in the business almost at about the same time.
You got a little head start on me. But
small one, crisscrossing paths. I mean, me as an engineer, I always had good relationships with the commercial brokers. I valued all the commercial people's knowledge of buildings, and we always wanted to be there to help and obviously latch on. But like to me, I'm wondering. I mean, I know a little bit, but like how much have you seen your business change and transform?
It's
over the
changed
last 20 years?
unbelievably. And you were asking me, have I listened to any of these podcasts to kind of get the flavor of what's discussed in this
Right.
really cool room here, by the way. And I heard Denny kind of commenting how he really leans on technology and, how much he appreciates it. And it sounded like you maybe stumble through
Yes.
things a little bit more. And the technology in my industry, I can only imagine in your industry, has progressed so much. And we're a very, very small fish in a very, very big ocean with some very, very sizable fish.
Yeah.
And the technology for us has enabled us to compete at the level of the national and multinational companies.
Yeah.
We lean very, very heavy into technology and education and current best practices, and the technology in the industry is just exploded. I know you guys are doing stuff with drones and
Yeah.
crawling through pipes with gadgets and developing plans
It's
with
literally
new software.
changing every day. I think we're seeing it.
Does not replace the human element and the human interaction
Nope.
any day of the week. And I have yet to see AI conduct any level of sales or interactive
Right.
transactional process. So for us, AI is huge. I'm in it every day. Sometimes I'm overwhelmed and my eyes roll in the back of my head. But it is a game changer. The technology in general is a game changer, and it's
It is.
apparent in your industry. It's apparent in my industry. It's if you're not keeping up with it, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, there's no question about it. If you're not keeping up with that or evolving continuously, like I see you heavily on LinkedIn, I'm heavily on LinkedIn. I go on there a lot of it just to kind of see what's going on, see what my competitors are doing, see what may be coming down the pipeline. But if you're just taking the old philosophy of sitting on the bottom of the ocean in the dark waiting for something to swim by to eat, then you're going to starve to death.
You're going to be hungry.
Yep.
Yeah, LinkedIn for me and our company has been a tremendous resource.
Yeah.
It's easy, it's affordable, it's accessible, and I'm not ashamed to say I've sold multi-million-dollar buildings as a result of my efforts on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I believe it. I
And
believe it.
put 6+ figures of commissions in my pocket
Yeah.
just by putting up a silly LinkedIn post. So, and that's not a secret or anything
Right.
that I'm not willing to share because you still have to show up and do it.
Yeah.
And just like you, I'm sure you have all kinds of things that you do and you just ingrain them in your pattern and that presence, results in revenue and it results in conversations and opportunities that, help to grow your business.
Yeah. I missed somehow, and I'm glad I did. I missed the Facebook train when it all came out, even though people were jumped all over it. I don't know why.
You're not
I
missing
didn't.
anything.
I'm not missing anything. But I did do LinkedIn, and I do actually use it a good bit for even if I'm going to meet someone who, like you introduced me to a good gentleman this morning who I had breakfast with. But I like to look these people up right before I go there, and then I kind of see quickly who they know. I mean, imagine 20 years ago, you didn't really have that resource. You could have been meeting with a guy that, for all you knew, was best friends with your neighbor or your brother-in-law or something like that. But in this case, look them up, see what they do, and see what these connections are made. And I think it's a valuable thing actually to kind of
Get a snapshot.
make those touches. With
We
people.
we just started in our office. I'm kind of piloting it right now. A really, really amazing prospecting tool. I will keep that close to the
That's
vest.
fine.
I'm happy to share it with you offline.
We'll
but
do it the next podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next year.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely unbelievable, the technology that's out there. But yeah, just to get a snapshot, to prepare you and give you a little bit of background and perspective on who you might be meeting with, and it just enhances that human interaction.
Yeah. And like the other thing that's interesting to me, and we were just sitting here talking offline while we were kind of getting things set up, is like seeing, the old days, you probably were listing office buildings, listing flex buildings, and maybe some retail here and there. But now you're seeing, obviously, the office market's completely different. COVID changed that initially, and the way we would do work and the way people, whether they go to work or not, is different. The flex market seems to be really busy, but it almost seems like we're living through a pretty neat transformation. We're going to see the Exton Mall get transformed from the mall into some residential, and maybe some elements of the mall may remain. I think, like, what are you seeing in the office building market? I mean, we just talked about one building in particular.
Offices, even before COVID, office was spotty.
Right.
People value flexibility. I think there's, like anything else, it's a mixed blessing. There's,
Yeah.
Two sides to the story and two sides to the movement. It's great to work at home, until you're missing out on that important critical interaction with your colleagues and,
Right.
How much efficiency and how much ingenuity comes out of those, water cooler talks, so to speak. So I think there's a huge amount that's missed out by strictly being out of office. But there's something to be said about, working, Friday or Friday afternoon from your house and,
Yeah.
getting ready for the weekend, getting your kids together, whatever you might be doing. But, when the Amazon guy shows up and your dog barks, while you're on the Zoom call,
Right. Yeah.
that's
And the
awfully,
secret's up.
that's awfully disruptive.
Right.
But I think office has been challenging. It's slowly coming back. I think we're missing, a lot of collaboration and collaborative ideas by being purely
Yeah.
independent. I just think, as humans, we don't really like to be completely isolated. Some people do, but it's nice to have that opportunity to go,
It is. You got to
to
get
the
out.
office. And how, you guys have grown, exponentially over the past couple of years. How would you bring on a new colleague or associate and, say, hey, log on to Zoom at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. and, we'll, have our day conducted through Zoom.
Yeah,
That would be awful. That
It's
would be like,
impossible. It wouldn't even be awful. It would be
it
impossible.
would be like a prison sentence if somebody
Right.
told me that's how I was going to work. So it's like anything else. There's a balance. I think the pendulum swung, after COVID, way over to the one side where, people were taking a lot of liberties. It's funny, speaking of COVID, I was out with a broker this morning, and I'm kind of informally taking note of what people are wearing over the past couple of weeks.
Right.
I have not seen one person in dress shoes
Yeah.
over the past 3 weeks. The broker who I met with earlier today, who, by the way, was from one of the big national firms, CBRE, not mentioning any names,
No. Right.
showed up, with dress pants, similar to me, and he
Yeah.
had the standard issue, broker vest on, which
Yeah.
everybody gets when they become a commercial broker.
Right.
And we were just talking about how nobody puts a suit on anymore, and how wonderful it is.
Yeah.
And it just, I feel bad if you're in the dry cleaning business, but just to be able to wake up and put on something comfortable and comfortable shoes, and just a lot more practical. When I
Yeah.
go home and play with my kids or dogs, it's not like I'm changing out of
Right. Your suit.
a suit or something like that, and it's now widely accepted.
A big time. I was going to go back for a second. I think you had briefly drank the Kool-Aid of there being no more offices ever back during COVID. I ran into you and you were like, well, and I've certainly fenced with, interestingly, my traffic engineering colleagues who believed in their heart the days of ever going to the office were completely gone. But I can tell you, for us, it's impossible. There's
It's
no way a young
impossible.
engineer could be taught anything.
I do a lot of work from home for various reasons, but I really appreciate being in the office, and I try to get in my office as much as possible.
Yeah.
But it's also really, really nice to wake up on a Saturday or Sunday morning, make a pot of coffee, and sit down and get a ton of work done. Because,
Absolutely.
again, we've all adapted to being able to work remotely. The systems are in place. I'm sure you're just as efficient as you are,
Yep.
From a connectivity standpoint at home. But there's
But
nothing
we
like-
weren't before. That's the
No.
lesson COVID taught us.
Yeah.
You could do it a little bit if you had a problem, but COVID kind of taught us to be completely flexible and be at home. So it is nice. Like
Yeah.
a senior level guy in here or girl can go home or be home, or they're meeting the repairman, or their kids have a game. They can easily be home and be just as efficient.
Just as productive.
Yep.
But you do lose a lot by being purely on that side.
Yeah. I think that it's so.
So back to your question, office, it remains active. I wouldn't say it's overly active, and I certainly think, just in the news, the Great Valley School District is buying a large office building over off of 202, for really a fraction of what the seller bought it for, just not really that long ago.
Yep.
So I think, those large campus-like offices are challenging. We don't work in that space a ton.
Right.
We're more dealing with kind of the local and regional companies, not necessarily the national and multinational.
Right.
But I think those office campuses are going to be really, really challenging, and pose an opportunity for redevelopment and repurposing.
Yeah. I'm interested to see if maybe even know of any, like, have there been any large office buildings that have just been repurposed into being residential?
Well,
At all?
as well as I do, what goes into building
Yeah.
a purpose-built apartment building. You've got restrooms,
All the plumbing.
kitchen, yeah.
Right.
And if it's not designed that way, it's very, very hard just to pivot and
Right.
all of a sudden start putting in all these utility chases and
Yeah.
elevators and windows, and
Yeah.
it's challenging.
The ones that have elevators, and I've often looked at it. I watched for a little while when Bishop Shanahan in Westchester got purchased, and of course it became townhomes. I had thought it was going to become apartments in some way, but
The existing building.
Yeah, I did. I thought they were going to be that way. I thought it'd be kind of cool. And I've driven by some places. There's some places in like upstate New York that you come down through that were like old, like 3-story schools.
Like the beautiful brick.
Exactly.
Lots of windows.
Lots of windows,
Yeah.
and now they're like studio apartments.
And that, I think, can work. Obviously, your basis or your
Right.
entry into that project has to be something that makes sense.
Yeah.
And those buildings were also built in a time where, if you look at kind of the modern office campus, and I will mention, and thank you for coming into my class at Westchester University. Appreciate that. I teach a commercial real estate development class there Thursday evenings. I'll be there tonight. If you look at the technology that's enabled those types of campus buildings, it's very, very dependent on robust HVAC.
Yeah.
And, we talked about the elevators and, it's dependent on a lot of systems to be in place. But if you look at those old schools, they had operable windows. They weren't super high. So, you're not going up, 4 or 5, 10 stories. So I think those buildings actually lend themselves to redevelopment or repositioning because you have a lot more natural light.
And they have high
operable
ceilings.
windows. You have a lot of architectural details. It's interesting, and I'm kind of looking for areas where we can, areas of overlap. So you and I both enjoy the Eastern Shore, in particular, Rock Hall,
right?
Where I spent a lot of time there. You spend not as much time as you used to, but I know you're a Rock Hall loyalist.
Right.
Yeah, Rock Hall Elementary School was up for sale, and I kept looking. I actually had somebody look at it for redevelopment. Again, it's that single story, kind of the various wings, and we just couldn't get the numbers to work. But the architecture in the building really lent itself to redevelopment. And you look at something like that, like kind of an old classic brick schoolhouse. Not a one-room school, but what you're talking about.
Right.
That's a completely different scenario than trying to,
convert an office building.
Flip a 300,000-foot office campus into residential.
Well, they're going to be. It's going to continue to evolve and change because we see these buildings sitting there. Of course, we're in the market for a building at some point in time here, and we've been looking, but there's so many that just sat waiting for something.
I think there's a lot of denial and kicking the can down the road.
Right.
And I work out at the Y here in town with
Chase Gallagher.
No.
Okay.
But I've seen him there before. Yeah. Local, well-known real estate developer who and we have coffee a couple times a week, and we were talking about how people are starting to come around, and particularly that Great Valley building, where once people accept kind of the reality of the situation that they're in, then things start to happen.
Yeah,
and those buildings just don't have the value that they used to. That doesn't mean every single office building is worthless,
right?
But there's certainly some that are functionally obsolete and just don't compete or appeal to what I would call a typical market participant. You're looking for that unicorn, and there's not a lot of unicorns walking around right now.
There's not. I liked in my mind. I would like to see some of them transformed, only because back in the day when I was like a young engineer and I was inspecting when I worked for E.B. Walsh, I inspected for Euclid Township, and Hankin was building Eagle View, and I think a lot of people, including myself, thought that Bernie Hankin was kind of crazy for the whole idea. But now that you've seen it come together, like 30 some years later, we're all we're like, wow, he was like
been
way
wildly
ahead of his
successful.
time, and like what a tremendous idea to like live, work, and play. And there's not many opportunities like that in the county to do that anymore.
There's not, and that, unfortunately, to some extent is by design. Are you familiar with the concept of zoning? Have you heard of that before?
I have a little bit, yes.
Yeah, so zoning, I always thought at its simplest definition, zoning is to prevent conflicting land uses. So you don't want the municipal trash dump, next to the playground, which is next to the, residential housing. But I think there needs to be some sensible and some practical relief and relaxation of zoning in order to repurpose these properties. And these properties have a tremendous amount of value. If you go out, what's it cost and what's the work and cost and time and effort, to take undeveloped raw ground and, turn it into something that's productive or, that's part of the built environment. It takes a fortune. So why not look at these buildings and these communities and these campuses and think about sensible ways to reuse or repurpose what's there? And there are definitely physical limitations, but the zoning is a huge obstacle to overcoming.
It's massive.
Yeah.
It's massive.
And to your point, Hankin blended those concepts and those uses really well.
Yeah.
And if you think about it and go back in time, it's, there's very little that's new in this world. If you think about, South Philadelphia, the, butcher shop or bakery or whatever, with the,
residential
proprietor living above. I mean, that's not a new concept.
No,
nor is alleys, nor are curbs,
Yep.
nor are sidewalks. And we got away from all that. And, we went to, and I a student of, urban development and redevelopment. It's just something that gets me really excited. I happen to sell real estate for a living, but
Yeah.
if I could do anything in the world and snap my fingers, I would love to redevelop, existing commercial sites.
Yeah. I would love. I think that's where we're headed to go
Because
to,
it
and
it
we don't have a
saves
choice.
it saves green space.
Well,
You're utilizing something that's already been developed.
and there's already infrastructure
Which is a
that's there.
huge savings. There's
Roads, utilities, sewer.
huge efficiency. So we need to
Yeah.
relax the zoning. Unfortunately, if you bought an office building, in 2018, 19, 20, it's probably not worth what it was then.
Right.
So, the owners of those assets need to come to the realization that, and again, I'm generalizing. I'm not saying every single office, we're in a very nice office building right now
Yeah.
that's well utilized. And, we were just talking, people need a place to work. But
Yeah.
um, there's a lot of cross currents out there right now.
Yeah, and I think in Pennsylvania, my opinion is that the township the township process being compared to a county process isn't serving us well. I had a
It's
lady
extremely
stop
inefficient.
me in East Fallowfield one time a long time ago, and she said, "My daughter lives down in Washington D.C. and they don't have this problem in traffic and this and that." And she was like, "Can you explain that?" And she was asking it in a way I knew where she thought she was going to basically take a shot at me, and I'm like, "I'd be happy to." That area is planned by professionals, planned on a county-wide basis. Chester County is not planned on a county-wide basis. I mean, God bless our planning commission; they do what they can
They
do.
do the best they can.
But to be able to say that every township has to provide for every use, so you take some township like Wallace or West Nantmeal and say they have to provide apartments. There's no infrastructure out there. There's no roadway infrastructure out there. So you build high density, and now you don't have the roads to get the people in there. So if the county was planned where you had the high density along the major corridors, Route 30, Route 202, Route 1, and it went out from there, then it would be a much better place. But we don't do it that way. We do it, and in fact, we do quite the opposite. What townships do is they push the zoning that they don't like to the outside of their township, which is so foolish. And they think that it's curtailing development, but it's not, because we're in the wealthiest, most affluent county probably in the entire nation, and everyone wants to be here. So what does it do? Creates business for me and for you to kind of do
And it
work.
creates a very inefficient and fragmented system.
Yep.
It's interesting you say that, all the municipalities do have the ability to control their own zoning. But then there's the livable landscapes at the county level, which does try to take
Right.
a county-wide approach to zoning and planning, but it really doesn't have any teeth to it.
It doesn't. And good luck. We not to again knock our townships, but they're. I just had breakfast with a man you introduced me to this morning, and I told him, I'm like, before you go to township A, B, C, or D, you need to call me or someone who does work there so that we can give you the lay of the land. It's not just as simple as the ordinance. That township may, in one way or the other, be owned by one of those elected officials who basically has been the elected official for the last 30 years, and they are the gatekeeper. And if you
Right.
don't know your way through or around, then you're going to not get anywhere. And I don't think it's not serving us all. If there should be some flexibility into the zoning, and I don't if it'll ever happen in my lifetime, who knows? But I think that we're going to get to the point where it's going to have to happen, because the people that have struggled to move into the area that are here are now running
Mhm.
for these elected positions, and they kind of want to make it. They have a different vision for the county, one that's not just let's stop everybody from trying to come into the county.
Right,
Doesn't
right. And
work.
we're fortunate to have these problems in Chester County because there's a lot of
We are.
areas where people are leaving, and once the population declines, taxes decline, public services, schools, everything
Yeah.
kind of follows.
Yeah,
So
I
these are
s-
good problems to have, but
they are.
like anything else, it's time to take a fresh look at how things are handled, at a local, municipal, and countywide level. I don't know if it happens in your lifetime or mine, but
Yeah,
it's
not mine.
aspirational.
Yeah. When I want to see, and one of my big things is that, and of course, affordable housing is like the fun and sexy thing to discuss, and everyone wants to talk about it. But one of my big pet peeves is that I feel like very few people who work in the major employment centers like Great Valley can afford to live in Great Valley. So what
They can't.
do? They work there, and then they get in their car and they drive west or south until they can afford to live or buy a house. And then what do I hear when I go to the township meetings? Complaints about traffic and stormwater. And the traffic one, we're making ourselves. We're forcing everybody in their car to drive further and further. With some flexible zoning, something like what Eagleview was, which is pretty cool, where you can kind of afford to live there,
Hmm.
and maybe work there, and maybe even go out to dinner and shop there is a pretty cool thing.
But when it's in many respects, it's uh, creating artificial scarcity. All these zoning layers and
Yep.
restrictions and hoops, restrict how much housing can be provided.
Yep.
Housing, we'll pick housing. And again, I'm definitely not, a pro. Let's go develop every blade of grass. I'm actually quite the opposite. Let's keep the grass and look to
Right.
redevelop where we can. You're never going to have a scenario where you're not developing green space, at some level. But let's focus on, the existing urban cores. When you make that process more complex, it adds costs and expense and time, and all that ultimately gets passed through to the consumer. So that quote unquote affordable house has all these layers of complication and zoning and approvals and
Yeah.
entitlements that all drive the cost up that don't help to contribute to really truly affordable housing.
Right. I think we're getting to the point now too where we need to, from a county standpoint, start looking at opportunities. I think the mall was a big opportunity. And I think West Whiteland has done a great job with the amount of pressure that they've received over the years. Hindsight, if I would have liked to have seen in some way, form or another, they just wipe the slate clean with the mall and just say, come back to us with some different visions of what could be done rather than trying to just shoehorn the most density that will fit into the ordinance. I've
Hmm.
said this for my entire career, and I'm going to go to a township next week. I don't think that just the strict application of the exact ordinance results in the best use of the ground for everybody. In fact, I think it actually is usually the wrong use. So maybe there's some flexible zoning where you can either do the by right zoning, or there's an option that says come in with something that's just completely out of the box and fresh, and we have the right to look at it. Is that my phone ringing? I'm going to turn it off so that nobody hears it.
I think what you're getting at is more of a collaborative
Right.
process because if you look at that underlying zoning ordinance, that's relying on the stakeholders that put it together at that point in time to have imagined all the possibilities for that
Yeah,
project, which is impossible.
it is, but it's impossible. It's more impossible because I think that the regulated community is coming at it from a mindset of how do we how do we slow this down and stop it, rather than a mindset of we can't stop things, so how can we make it be the best?
Hmm.
But it's never that. I mean, some of our most successful projects are ones where, sadly, uh, we've created the buy right plan, which usually, frankly, kind of sucks, and then said like, "Hey,
This is what we can
this
do.
is what we can do, but we
Yeah.
also could do this. And are you open? Are you open enough to consider us doing this on some? And usually it involves, we can add some amenities here or a park there, but that's really where the best plan comes out.
But why
And
should you be forced to start with something that's so inefficient and so, um, you know, out of character for that site
I
or,
know.
something that, it's the process is flawed.
Well, it is because the zoning ordinances, they should be. I mean, no one has the energy to do it. I'm on a planning commission. I mean, the zoning ordinance would need to evolve on almost an annual basis,
Right,
and there's
right.
no one.
There's
It's a monumental task to
there's
even
no way
write it.
I agree,
Right.
but there are certain steps that municipal officials could take to make that
Oh yeah.
process more friendly and more collaborative.
Yep.
Yeah, so why should you be forced to present, plan A, which is by right, which may be completely inappropriate for that site or not in the best interest of the community,
Right.
rather than, why do you have to kind of lead with kind of the sharp edge and say, well, here's what we can do, but we'd really rather do this, which makes more sense for everybody.
Yeah.
It's a flawed process. I don't know what the solution is, but I know where we are right now is not the best.
No. No, it's not, and I think we're seeing it. I think it's being made to seem to be worse because of the pressure that we're receiving. Like, I mean, You're really not gonna. You can't stifle demand. We just
No,
opened a new
no.
community up in Exton. NV did the Gray Farm,
Yeah.
which of course is me, and they've had tremendous success in a week. But it also has taken me since 2017. I went in before I had all my approvals in place. We got denied by the township. We appealed that approval to the county, where we lost again, and we went to the Commonwealth Court. So it's really made me kind of recommend to some clients on some larger projects. I'm of the mindset, you know, you from day one that you walk in there to have a discussion, you bring a stenographer with you. You just take down a record of what's happening because you're just doing it because you're anticipating you're probably going to be denied, and you just take the tact of, look, we're ready to be denied by you, so we can
We're
hurry
assuming
up.
denial.
Yep, and we'd rather you deny us faster than
Yeah.
anything, so we can get to the county.
What an inefficient process.
Yep, and then likely lose again.
I mean, what if you went to your dentist and you said, I have a tooth that hurts, and they start pulling all the teeth to find out which is the one that
Right.
hurt? You'd be left with
I
a
know.
mouth without any teeth.
Yep, but what's happening over those 4 or 5 years while you do it? More people are being made, right? I keep saying it all the time. We can make a human in 9 months. I can't get lots approved to be built on in under like 2 to 3 years.
If
So
you're really moving.
right, so
Yeah.
so demand will outpace what our supply is. This is economics 101. Every time one of my elected official friends asks me about affordable housing, I'm like, the affordable housing isn't a matter of building things more efficiently. It's about having more housing, and we don't. We have not enough, so we just keep skimming the wealthiest layer of cream off the top of the demand cup and selling houses to those people.
Hmm.
And then no existing housing market to speak of is making it worse because people have their 3% mortgages and then they aren't moving out.
That's me. I have
Yep.
a 3% mortgage, and I'm in a house that I really don't want to be in anymore. But there's nowhere for me to go,
Right.
and I'm also going to have to, take a mortgage at today's rates.
Don't-
6.5 or 7. It makes no
Right.
sense.
Right.
I'm that guy
I know.
who doesn't want to be in my big house, and there's nowhere to go. There's no supply, and it would
Nope.
cost me more money to move.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the next 10 years in the county kind of play out from a demand standpoint. Like I said,
I don't think it's going anywhere.
Oh no,
I don't think
not
it's going to go away.
Nope. Nope.
It's just going to, the demand's not going anyway. To your point, you're not going to, cut off the demand. So how do we collaboratively
Right.
tackle, these issues and provide? And we need affordable housing,
We do.
big time.
They need. I said but there will be some opportunities coming in the county of some larger pieces of ground, and I think that we would be remiss if we didn't try to look at them from a flexible standpoint and say, what is the best thing that we could do here? Wiping the zoning just for a second. If you said to someone, if there was no zoning in place,
What would you do here?
What would you do
Yeah.
here? I mean, obviously
Yeah.
you need to do stormwater and all the other things, but what would you do here? And just kind of take some proposals in there. And
Some creativity
yep, and that's what
and some innovation.
we're lacking. We're just
Yeah.
going to be continually looking at the ordinance and just cramming as much density in there as we can.
Well, shift gears a little bit. I really love, everything that you've done here at Howell, and you've grown tremendously, acquisitions, and you continue to add great people. And I know you and my friend Eric Smith hooked
Oh,
up
yeah.
and found a way to
Yep,
work
some
together.
of his bright works right up there on the TV.
that
screen.
has Eric
Yeah.
Smith written all over
All
it.
over it.
The second I walked in here, I knew that was Eric
Yep.
Smith, and he's an incredibly talented and gifted human being.
But
And
only half as smart as his wife.
That's
You
right.
probably know, right?
that's right.
Yep.
Yeah. Susan's the brains, Eric's the mouth.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I'm impressed. I'm happy that we can collaborate. Where we can,
Yep.
and the stuff that you're doing here at Howell is really even this whole podcast.
This was some
5
film
years ago,
crate-
I didn't even know what a podcast was. I still
didn't
don't know
either.
what one is. I have no idea. Where
I don't
this is
even
gonna
know if
end
we're
up.
doing one right now. I don't think, but these are foam crates off of Amazon, so we picked our pattern.
Yeah,
We'll get there.
yeah.
Get
So you're doing great stuff, and
Well, thanks, bud.
expanding into Annapolis, and that's all good stuff. And we're slowly trying to follow in your footsteps.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, I know you've got a proctology appointment at 2:00.
Yeah. What do we have? Another 2 hours or
I
so?
think we're actually good right here. You've earned yourself a Beard Engineer T-shirt.
I came for a free T-shirt.
Yep. Well, you're gonna get one now.
I thought it was, maybe like a Halloween pop-up store here or something like that. I was going to get a free Halloween costume, but
No, but You are going to get a T-shirt. So
I'll wear it proudly.
all right, Chuck. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
all right.
you.
And thank you. And we'll talk to you guys next time. See ya.